Shalom, shalom, Israel. Peace, love, and salutations to the hopeful elect. Shalom to all the men and women who are rehearsing the righteous acts day in and day out. Shalom to you. Before we get started, I want to give all praises, all glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rahakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who are preaching and teaching this truth with humility and sincerity across the four winds of the world to so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Indigenous of the America. Shalom. In case you didn't know, Yahweh is the true ancient biblical name, who the world ignorantly calls God. Yahweh, meaning he is, he exists. Yahweh Shai is the only begotten Son, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. Yahweh Shai, the ancient biblical true name, which means he saves, he delivers. Bahasham is coming in the name. And Rahakwadash is Spirit Holy. Today's video is going to be about this so-called black man. And the name of this video, for now, I think I might call it so-called free, but still bound by these heathens' rules. Okay, I might switch it up later, but Jake is so-called free, but still bound by the rules of the devil here in Babylon the Great. Okay, let's get started here. This is the Spirit led me to do this video about this so-called black man here called William Johnson. Okay, and we're gonna go into a little bit of his biography. Give me a second here. I had to get a little something to drink. William Johnson, born enslaved in 1809 in Natchez, Mississippi, freed at 11 years old in 1820 by his owner, who was likely his father. By the 1830s, he owned one of the top barbershops in Natchez, serving judges, politicians, and the city's elite, known for his impeccable style, discipline, and business sense. Became one of Mississippi's wealthiest free black men. Murdered at the age of 42, but his story still echoes nearly 200 years later. Okay, this is a quick little bio on William Johnson. Okay, I tried to do a little research on who his dad was, but they don't really talk about that. And like we just got done reading, he was likely his father, the guy who owned him. They do always refer to him as a biracial black man. Okay, so I was trying to do research to see who his dad was. Could have been, more than likely, could have been a white man. Okay, as you can see, this so-called black man, being a biracial man, was born into slavery and, was freed by, was likely his father, right? And became a very successful barber, servicing politicians, etc., judges, and, became also a very successful businessman, right? That was the stepping stone for him to be a successful here in Babylon the Great. Okay, and mind you, this is around the 1800s. So, of course, the laws and the rules of you being biracial. If you had one drop, you were still considered a so-called black man, therefore a slave. Okay. Let's continue reading here. From slave to wealthy barber, 1820s to 1840. Apprentice under his brother-in-law, James Miller, a free black barber in the 1820s. Natchez took over the shop by the 1830s and expanded into multiple locations and a bathhouse. From 1835 to 1851, He kept a detailed diary logging every transaction, client, and debt. One of the most complete business records of any 19th century African American. Okay, so here we go. Very detailed, very organized, so-called black man, right? Logging every transaction, client, and debt. So that lets me know a lot of reading about this individual, about his character. Very organized, very professional, right? And also kept the record of every debt. Notice, so meaning everything he owed, he understood and knew, being a so-called black man, they're going to scrutinize everything you do, and you're going to be under a microscope, right? So you couldn't play around, I'm assuming, any little tax evasions or fraud, right? He kept the track of every debt. And, and that's a sign, that's one little sign. I'm picking up a lot of signs of this brother. Could be a Jake, you know what I'm saying? Could be because because you look like a so-called black or brown man. And keep in mind, this brother is biracial. So if you look at him, he could easily pass for a Northern Kingdom brother, right? But, that's just, talking in the world, right? Because we know that you are who your father is, right? At the end of the day, we don't preach and teach colorism, right? Because colorism is makes no sense, right? You're gonna end up as square zero back again, because it's gonna confound you, right? Because this guy, I was trying to see who his father was, but they never really show anything else, and they don't really ever talk about the father. I wonder why that is. That's Esau for you. You know what I'm saying? We got all this information, but we can't know who his father was, right? What if he was a so-called white man? Okay. And, just so they won't make themselves look bad. I don't know. I could only assume. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, without getting off a topic, the brother was very, very detailed, a great barber, an artist, a businessman, and was very organized, right? Those are traits in the spirit that I could receive of a Jake, and very smart, kept debt, because again, if you don't keep it properly, they have a reason to close your ass down, shut you down, get you for tax evasion and so forth, right? Let's continue reading here. Owned barbershops, rental homes, timberland, and farms, stacking generational wealth before the Civil War. Okay? Let's continue reading here. It says from slave to wealthy barber. Okay? Let's continue reading here. Even free men were trapped in a broken system, right? Even a so-called free man, because we understand and know, like Job, in the book of Job 9:24, it says clearly the world is given into the hand of the wicked. So look at the subliminal there, in a broken system, as if this system can be fixed by man. And I'm here to let you know that heck no, this system cannot be broken. Salaka, this system cannot be fixed by man. Okay, this system can only be fixed by Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai. Only true righteousness could fix this, right? And just like a lot of our people, the Israelites, we strive to do successful things in the world, only to later find out that, you could only get so far, right? You're only allowed certain levels, right? Or only to learn that, it's all rigged and you could only get so far. And if you continue to try to go further, you are putting yourself at risk, okay? Unless you're an Edomite, you're allowed those certain levels, right? And you have to so-called sell out your own people and your own culture just to get ahead, okay? Let's continue reading here by the 1840s, Johnson owned slaves, a hard truth in his history. Okay, so this guy was a very successful barber, as you saw. We just got done reading, but he owned slaves, right? And this is a word that's gets used a lot, right? Often, and is very misinterpreted, and that is because of the perversion of Esau, Edom, of the word, right? Because we know through biblical times that slavery was a normal thing. In reality, when you think of slavery, everybody thinks of that chattel hardcore bondage slavery. You picture a Jake with a yoke of iron around his neck, or an indigenous man with a yoke of iron around his neck, right? Because Esau, Edom, he projected that image, right? He actually embodies that image, right? But the word itself, slave, wasn't a bad thing. Slavery was equivalent to saying the word employee, right? And we could prove that here in a second. Let's go here real quick. And slavery was in the book of let's go. Give me 1 second here. Salakia for that. All right, Salakia for that. I think it's Exodus was 21. Salakia for that. Exodus 21, right? This goes to prove that, the word slavery, when done in a righteous fashion, how it's supposed to be done, right? How the word employee is looked at as now as something normal and something civil, right? Having a servant to help you with tasks or just jobs, and you have rules and laws that abide to be able to, to have that servant and treat them accordingly, right? Exodus 21:2, if thou buy a Hebrew servant, okay, look, a Hebrew servant, 6 years he shall serve, and the 7th he shall go out free for nothing. Okay, so Yahweh Hashem, Yahweh Shai, the nation of Yasharallah, we had rules and ways to do things, right? The civil manner, right? With righteousness, right? Everything done in righteousness, right? Not in the left-handed way like Esau, Edom does, okay? And here we got an example of how a Hebrew Hebrews had other Hebrews as so-called slaves, right? 6 years he shall serve, and in the 7th, they shall go free for nothing. Okay, now they did have rules for other nations was different. Okay, but that's another topic for another day. But slavery was allowed by the Lord, and it's going to still be allowed in the future as well, right? And the difference is now they have terms like employee. They've even had a time where they used indentured servants or whatever. But ultimately, all of those were the same, Here we go again, Exodus 21. And this is just an example of, how righteous the nation of Yasharallah, led by Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai, had the rules and how they conducted themselves as masters over a slave, right? Let's go to Exodus 21 and 20. And if a man smite his servant or his maid with a rod, and he die under his hand, he shall be surely punished. And he shall be surely punished. Okay? You see that? Esau Edom wasn't doing that shit. If he smite his servant, he cursed him out. He did all types of stuff. Okay? And he was not punished. And you know damn well he was not. Because Esau Edom, the self-proclaimed white man, was a damn heathen and still is to this day. He's a damn devil. He's an Edomite. Now, we don't go based on color, okay? And that's why we're doing this video today, all right? To go beyond that and to go into the spirit and what it reveals into us, okay? Exodus 21 and 26. And if a man smite the eye of his servant or the eye of his maid, that it perish, he shall let him go free for his eye's sake. Okay, another example of how Israelites conducted themselves with slaves, right? If you would smite the eye of his slave, of his servant, or the eye of his maid, that it perish, he shall let him go free for his eye's sake. Okay, we know Esau Edom wasn't doing that shit. Okay, he was a ruthless, still to this day, it's the same ruthless Edomites right now, which go all the way back to Esau, right? And again, it was a perversion of a wicked base man that has no morals or has no laws, statutes, or commandments to guide him, right? He rejected that, right? Even since Jacob and Esau, right? Esau doesn't want nothing to do with the birthright, doesn't want nothing to do with the law, statutes, commandments, because he's the wicked, right? He is the vile base man of the world. Okay? And we're going to go into this word perversion, because a lot of times, people hear a word and they automatically assume something and don't really know that it could mean several different definitions, right? So obviously a lot of people, when they hear the word perversion, they always only think it's something sexual, right? But the perversion of Esau Edom, his mind is a corrupt mind, and he doesn't understand how to do things on the right-hand side. He is a left-handed man, right? That only understand wickedness and doing things on the left-hand side, all right? All right, perversion, the alteration of something. The alteration of something from its original course, right? And that's exactly what Esau Edom did, man, when he started having slaves. He altered how to treat a slave. Because if you go and read the rules, the chapters on rules of slavery in the Old Testament, man, you would be baffled on how well they treated the slaves, to the point where you had owners giving their slaves wives, right? If you had a slave and the slave was a good servant, he said, master, I've been with you for X amount of years. I would like to have a beautiful wife, a wife. And if the slave owner, the master, liked you, he was like, you know what? You're a good worker, man. I'm gonna find you out of all my women slaves here. I'm gonna get you a good looking woman, right? And it goes into that. It goes into detail of how these owners, how well they treated their so-called slave. Again, the word slave is a perversion, of Esau Edom, and how he used and abused that term. And that's why it has a bad stigma, the word, right? If you tell somebody, I want to have a slave, oh my God, you're wicked. No, you're the wicked one that doesn't know. You know what I'm saying? The alteration of something from its original course, meaning or state, to a distortion or corruption of what was first intended. It's a corruption of what was first intended. And that's what Esau Edom is, man. He's the base man that has no understanding and never will and does not want anything to do with true righteousness, right? Okay? That's what Esau Edom, did with that word, and continues doing. Let's go here to Job 3:30-8. They were children of fools, children of base men. Esau Edom is a base man. They were viler than the earth. And now I am their song, I am their byword, right? And that byword is talking about you Israelites, you so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Indigenous of the America, along with every other racial slur they've made up for us, okay? That's what the word byword means, okay? They abhorred me, they flee far from me, and spare not to spit in my face. Okay, Esau Edom is the vile base man in the earth, and he couldn't comprehend and understand how to conduct themselves in a righteous fashion to be in leadership, and that's why his empire is going to be destroyed. Okay, he had plenty of time to get it right, and it's too late, and it's too little of a time left for him to get right. He can't get right. That's who Esau Edom is, and that's the way his spirit is. And there's no way he could ever bring righteousness on earth, okay? Only Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai is able to do that, all right? And that's why Babylon the Great is going to be destroyed by ICBM missiles coming here to Babylon the Great, okay? For all the perversion Esau Edom has done on the nation of Israelites, okay? And you got a lot of knuckleheaded people still, trying to seek, like William Johnson, trying to seek wealth, trying to seek accomplishments in the world, only to find themselves later to be destroyed. You know what I mean? And not to get true justice. Okay? Let's continue reading here. I think I was over here. I read all this. Here we go here. Even free men were trapped in a broken system, right? And it's going to stay broken, okay? Why? Because the wicked are in the ruling power. The world has been given into the hand of the wicked. If not, who and where is he? Okay, Job 9:24. By the 1840s, Johnson owes slaves a hard truth in his story. Some were likely purchased to protect family members from being sold back into slavery. Others worked on his property. Okay, and there's records of that, and a lot of people have spoken on that topic, and that's what was going on in those times, right? You had successful so-called black men that were in position where they could buy other slaves, right? And why not buy your, family members or people of your nation? Okay. In a racist legal system, free black people often made painful choices just to survive, right? And those were kind of painful choices at that time, or you could call it strategic, right? Smart, right? I don't think it was painful. I think it was smart, if you had that power to help your brethren out, right? Get them out of a messed up situation, okay? William Johnson's life wasn't simple. He was free, but still bound by America, Babylon the Great's rules, right? And that's why the Spirit led me to do this video, man, because it reminds me of Jake, man, of all of us, right? And this good chance this brother could be Jake, okay? It is not based on just what he looks like, because he clearly looks like a Jake. He could pass easily for a Northern Kingdom brother. He was a biracial black man, okay? He was free, but still bound to America's rule. His story shows the uncomfortable balance between survival and success in a world designed to limit both. Right here in Babylon the Great, we are limited to our success and we are limited to our survival as well. Okay, we are limited to both, to everything. Right. So this man, being a so-called black man, labeled as biracial, and that just goes to further on and prove more how wicked Esau Edom is, man. Let's just say he was a white man. You could spin it any other way, right? Which I believe he was, because they don't show no records or even talking about him. They was talking about how he was biracial, and he's the one that let him go free. But anyways, let's pretend he was, that just goes to further on and go and prove that, this is how carnally minded people are in the world, especially Esau, Edom, to the point where his own son, being looked as by the world as a black man, he will still disregard him, right? He will still put him away or not even claim him. Okay. He'll be like, no, he's black. I don't want no parts of him. He was a so-called mistake. Okay. Now we're only using assumptions here. I tried to do some research on that. I couldn't find anything. But we only could assume. Maybe this white man was an Israelite himself too. Okay, that could be a possibility. He made him go free when he was 11 years old, but was restrained to his abilities to want to make him part of his life. Maybe, everybody was under this bondage, even so-called white people. Okay, what if he was an Israelite, the so-called white man, and was just restricted or didn't have the the funds to go further on beyond what he could do, or was just afraid of accepting his son in a world full of carnality, where they're like, hey man, that's your son, I don't want no parts of you. The rest of the family be like, hey, you're disowned from our family. You heard of stories like that, with slavery. You heard horrible stories like that where, women will be disowned by their family. No, you ain't part of our family. You were a so-called black man. In this case, you had a son and he was black. You and your black kids could get away from us. We don't want nothing to do with you, right? Maybe there was fear of that. Okay, all types of stuff. All types of perversion of Esau Edom's carnal mindset, right? And we're all held bondage because he is the wicked ruling power here in Babylon the Great, okay? And that's why the world is the way it is, in pure pain and misery and confusion, right? But we serve a God of righteousness. We serve a God of understanding. We serve a God that is plain and simple and to the point. And then there's no gray area and there is no confusion, right? These people out here, they serve a God of confusion, okay? Especially these religions out there and their crazy denominations and doctrines, okay? Let's go here to legacy that outlined him. This is the legacy that outlined William Johnson here. June 16, 1851. Johnson was murdered by a white neighbor, Baylor Wynn, after a dispute. Okay, so his neighbor was a so-called white man, Baylor Wynn, after a dispute. The killer walked free because Mississippi's law banned black testimony against whites. All right, so there you go. So you had William Johnson, a very successful so-called black man, right? Had money, had plenty of businesses, right? Again, we just got done reading this so-called black man was servicing, cutting the hair of politicians. And I believe he said there was judges maybe that I remember. But point blank period, was cutting politicians, man. So, as a lot of brothers, some brothers are barbers. They have connections, man. So how is it, that this brother with all this money and all this connections couldn't get justice, right? That's what you got to ask yourself. The killer walked free because Mississippi's law banned black testimony. That's why. Because the system is designed to destroy Israelites, okay? You so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Indigenous of the America, right? The killer walked free because Mississippi law banned black testimony. So there couldn't be no testimony of a black against a white. And in this case, this man, this neighbor, as you just got done reading here, Baylor Wynn was a white man. So a black man can't testify against a white man in court at that time, right? And even to this day, that could be true in certain cases, right? His 2,000-page diary survived one of the most important first-person records of free black life in the South. His home still stands as the William Johnson's house in Natchez, part of the National Park Service. Okay, so back to this guy, Baylor Wynn. It's funny because on this post right here, they considered him a white man. But I did some research and come to find out this damn Baylor Wynn dude is biracial himself. This dude wasn't even white that I remember reading. Okay, that was the loophole they found in order to let this man go free. Okay, I believe that I remember they said that he was okay. So that was their case, that he didn't have no black in him, that he had white, and I remember, and Native American in him, right? But he didn't have no black in him, and that's how they were able to get away free, because they claimed themselves not to be black. You see the perversion that was going on back then, even worse, Baylor Wynn was another biracial man. But again, I remember reading that. Let's see if I could pull it up real quick. Baylor Wynn. Neighbor. Of William Johnson. Let me see if I could find it real quick, but I remember reading that the other day, and I was like, wow, man, this is the perversion of Esau, Edom. You know what I mean? Him and his rules, and twisting and bending over here. Here we go. Johnson was murdered. Here we go, right there. Johnson was murdered in 1851 after an adjudicated boundary dispute. There we go, by a mixed race neighbor named Baylor Wynn, in front of his son, a free black apprentice and a slave. Wynn was held in prison for 2 years and brought to trial twice. Johnson was such a well-respected businessman that the outrage over his murder caused the trial to be held in a neighboring town. In that town, no one knew Wynn, so they didn't know that he was a half black. There you go. Wynn, so they didn't know that he was half black. Okay, so this guy, Baylor Wynn, was half black. Since Mississippi law forbade blacks from testifying against whites in criminal cases, Wynn's defense was that he was half white and half Native American. You see the bywords? See how this devil plays? He creates these bywords later on to just cause confusion and, move the goalpost. He's an expert at that. Esau Edom loves to move the goalpost, and make it where it's advantage for him only, right? Wynn's defense was that he was half white and half Native American, making him white by law, right? The defense worked. None of the black witnesses could testify, and Wynn escaped conviction, right? Look at the damn confusion, the damn corruption, right? The perversion of Esau Edom. This guy was a half so-called black man himself. Could he have been a Jake? Yes, we do understand and know that 2/3 of our people have taken the ways of Esau Edom, man. 2/3 of our people want to be like the so-called Edomites, man. They want to be like that, man. They're very corrupt and they have a very perverse spirit themselves, man. But this is what happens when you're under the umbrella of the wicked heathen Esau Edom. Okay? Esau Edom is he is the devil here, the physical counterpart here on earth, man. John 8:44, ye are of your father, the devil, and the lust of your father ye will do. He was a murderer from the beginning and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. Right? Esau Edom is the liar and the father of it, man. All the way back to, Cain. Right? All the way back to Cain. And Esau Edom, he's going to pay for all this, man. He's going to pay for having all these false convictions on people, having people under slavery, under bondage. It's getting ready to be a transition of power of the Israelites, right? Being in ruling power by the hand of Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, right? Let's get done reading here. His 2,000-page diary survived one of the most important first-person records of a free black life in the South. All right, we just got done reading that, and we're going to go here to, this is the last part of this post here. His 2,000-page diary is preserved in the Mississippi Department of Archives and History, one of the rarest records of free black life before the Civil War. All right, from 1835 to 1851, William Johnson's documented every dollar earned. Look how well organized this man was. And if you know anything about business, the most successful businessman, not only his creativity, but is the most organized. Some of the most organized people, man. They have a system that works. It's a very oiled machine. And just those are, characteristics of a Jake, and also characteristics of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai himself. That's why we are considered the sons of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, right? We bear witness in ourselves, in our spirit, of Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai. Therefore, we are the sons, okay? Very organized, and you can see the nature of the world itself, man, how organized it is. The sun sets, every time at a specific time every day, comes up in the morning, the month, the moon comes exactly, the seasons shift perfectly. The beauty and perfection of Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai. You know what I mean? Here we go. William Johnson documented every dollar earned, loan made, and lesson learned. His words showed how a black man built wealth, respect, and discipline in a world designed to break him. Right? Today, the diary stands as proof that barbers have always been more than barbers. We've been record keepers, businessmen, and builders of legacy. Okay? Today, the diary stands as proof that barbers have always been. Okay, his words showed that, this is the part that I wanted to read. His words showed how a black man built wealth, respect, and discipline in a world designed to break him. All right, yeah, that's all good, right? But it's not good enough, man. Okay? A black man could build wealth, respect, could do all this, be disciplined, only to be destroyed still here in this wicked heathen empire. That is the true message I'm bringing, right? And this is going to be subtle subliminals here, right? So what are they saying? Yeah, you could have all this success, be smart, just only to have no true righteousness. Even when he died, he couldn't get true justice. That's bullshit. Why would you want to settle for that? Man, screw that. Screw Edom and Babylon the fucking Great is going down. It's going to be destroyed by ICBM missiles, right? See these little subliminal posts like this? Why would you want to lower yourself and be? It's like saying it's okay. You could still be all this great shit in this empire, man. Screw this empire, man. Okay, this empire ain't shit. Yahweh Bahashim Yahushua is going to destroy this Babylon the Great here. Okay? And they're going to be slaves as well. Okay? Because we just got done reading what the true meaning of slavery was, right? And when done in a righteous fashion by the hand of Yahweh Bahashim Yahushua, by his true men, right? The hopeful elect, things will be in order. And there will be slaves. Okay? And some people may say, oh man, slavery, that ain't right. No, it is right. Just Esau, Edom's perversion wasn't right. Okay? He was over there raping people. He's just a very vile, base man. Sick in the head. You can't have a person like that in power, man. Okay? Let's go here to Romans 8:15. For ye have not received the spirit of bondage again to fear. Okay, we didn't receive the spirit of bondage again to fear. But ye have received the spirit of adoption, whereby we cry, Abba, Abba. Okay, Father, Father. Okay, and that's what we have received in the spirit of adoption, right? We are the sons of the Almighty Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai from the 12th tribe of Yasharallah, the Hebrew Israelites, you so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Indigenous of the America, right? Let's continue here. The Spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit that we are the children of Yahweh Bahasham Yahushai. Okay, that's how we're able to tell. Okay, and that's one of the points I wanted to bring up reading this post of William Johnson, right? We have to discern things in the spirit, okay? Because we are not that vile base man like Esau, Edom, okay? And there shows a lot of clues of that so-called black man there, by his talents, and what I have read about him, him buying some of his family members to help him out, it could be a very good chance that he was a Jake. All right. But the real way to know is who bears witness to the spirit of Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai, right? Who testifies, right? Who testifies to the true name? Who testifies to the true 100% true gospel? Only a true Jake will. Okay, now we do understand and know that there are some by blood, but not by the spirit. Okay, there are people, there are some Israelites out there, but there will be 2/3 that don't hearken into this 100% true gospel, right? They don't hearken into the 100% true gospel, right? They hearken into the likings of Esau, Edom, of the carnality, of the confusion and wickedness of the world. Okay? So, again, we are going to have them as slaves as well. Okay? And we're going to go here to Isaiah 60:14. The sons also of them that afflicted thee shall come bending unto thee. Right? So Esau, Edom has been afflicting us, right? For so many years, him and his wicked ways. And all they that despise thee shall bow themselves down to the soles of thy feet. And they shall call thee the city of the Lord, the Zion of the Holy One of Yasharallah. Right? The sons also of them that afflicted thee shall come bending the knee. Right? Come bending unto thee. Right? And that's what's getting ready to happen. Esau, Edom, and the rest of these heathen nations are going to pay for the controversy of Yasharallah. Right? For all the wicked acts and the genocide that they have done. Right? And they will be the ones in slavery. Right? They are going to be in bondage. Violence shall no more be heard in thy land, wasting nor destruction with thy borders, but thou shalt call thy walls salvation and thy gates praise. Right? And that is what it's going to sound and look like with the ruling power of the Israelites back in the true land that was promised to our forefathers, led by the hand of Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai himself. Okay? Isaiah 60. And there was one other one I wanted to bring out. Psalms 149:7. To execute vengeance upon the heathen and punishments upon the people. Right? And that's what we're going to do. Starting with the hopeful elect. They're going to have this honor. They're going to execute vengeance upon these heathens and punishments upon the people, to bind their kings with chains and their nobles with fetters of iron. Right? They will be under fetters of irons. And this is the beautiful privilege that the elect will have. All right, let's continue reading here. To execute upon them the judgment written. This honor have all his saints. Praise ye Yahweh Bahasham Yahushai. All right, praise Yahweh Bahasham Yahushai. And I'm going to go ahead and end it with that. Before I go, I want to give all praises, all glory to Yahweh Bahasham Yahushai Bahasham Rahakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who are preaching and teaching this truth with humility and sincerity across the four winds of the world, to you so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Indigenous of the America, and the speckled bird that are amongst those other nations that look like those from those other nations, but their lineage goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as well. Shalom, shalom.